I've always been interested in models of boats that work like the full-size counterparts. And this story is in particular about steamboats. Some time ago, back in, I think it was in the mid-80s, I found a kit for a single cylinder model steamboat, which I built, this Midwest Models Fantail Launch 2, which sort of satisfied this interest. But it had just a single cylinder engine, which if it stops running, you have to somehow get the boat back to start it again. So I've always been interested in models that would have true marine engine that would be self-starting and reversing. Normally such engines I've always found cost on the order of $1,000, which was more than I was willing to spend for that. But not too long ago, a few years ago, this affordable engine came on the market by a company in England that makes steam toys that was a true marine engine that had two double-acting cylinders, which made it so that it could be both self-starting and reversing. So I bought the engine, and then, of course, I needed a boat to put it in, and when I reviewed YouTube videos of different boats that were available, I settled on this model by the TEAK company called the Borkum. Borkum is an island in the Frisian Islands off the northwest coast of Germany. This island has a tourist town on it called Borkum, and this boat was a model of a launch that was used to take people out to that island and the resort town, Borkum, on the island back in the early 1900s. It would go from the town Emden on the north coast of Germany out to the island. In building the kit, one of the things that I decided was that boats that had a lot of clutter on them were the most interesting. And so I decided to see what I could do to add as many things to the boat as I could to make it as interesting as possible. One of the boats that I used as an example was somebody else built the Midwest Model Fantail Launch and outfitted it as it's seen here with all kinds of stuff. This one actually has an electric motor. They didn't use a real working steam engine. But it has a nice simulated steam engine. Another thing that I thought was interesting was to include a sound system on the model. And I found this tiny Bluetooth speaker that could be hidden under the seat. And then I put this little phonograph on there that sat over the speaker, so it sounded like the sound would be coming out of the phonograph. This phonograph, I think, is actually a little pencil sharpener. The other thing that I wanted to do for the model was to make it so that the steering actually worked. And here you can see the mechanism for the steering wheel that connects it to the rudder, which is also connected to a servo, so it can be controlled by radio control. Then this is a walk-around of the model as it's running that shows some of the things that I added to the model that I found from dollhouse suppliers on the internet. Also, here you can see I can play the music through my phone, the Bluetooth speaker. And anyway, the first place I ran the boat was a park in the Los Angeles area, the Don Knabe Park in Cerritos. I took it up there, where it ran pretty well. There were people that were interested in the boat, and I enjoyed sharing my hobby with other people, other enthusiasts. I had a little problem with actually having a valve I had to close before it built up the steam appropriately.
What can I do now that you say we're through? I'm left with the blues in my heart. How can I smile when life don't seem worthwhile? Oh, I'm left with the blues in my heart. How can I live?
I think this time when I ran it, for some reason it stopped briefly, but it wasn't a problem because it was coasting back in.
As long as we're apart.
Then another place I took it, a friend of mine, Niles, who I met as one of the assistant scoutmasters in the Boy Scout troop in the Palisades, invited me to bring the boat out where he lived in Venice, in the Los Angeles area, where there are these canals between the houses. And it was a wonderful place to run the boat. His daughter ran it first, and then his son, and then finally Niles ran it too. This was a lot of fun. When you blew the whistle, it kind of echoed between the houses, and so it had a fun sound. There was a lot of interest by the people that walked along the paths along the canals. You can see also we ran it around, did circles around Dad and his son that were out rowing.
My turn.
So do you keep them as you build them, or do you sell them?
Well, I haven't sold many, but you know, if
How much would you ask
well,
for this particular one?
yeah, I don't know. I think I've seen this boat. If you want to order this boat built, they charge like $4,000,
And not built, or have some items?
and the kit is $500 for the
I don't
boat,
think he would build it.
but that doesn't include the steam engine.
Yeah, I don't think he's got time to do it. It's just beautiful.
Oh, thank you, thank you. So this is your dock.
This is my dock.
Yeah, thank you for letting us use it.
Welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah.
For a good cause. If it wasn't you guys, I'd be kicking you off.
Is that the battery?
Pardon?
When it says 5 minutes, is that for the battery?
No, that's for the steam. That's for the water in the boiler.
So all you have to do is just put it
So
on
if it says 5 minutes, we should probably bring it further back.
Yeah, bring it back now.
Well, that was just wonderful.
Well, thank you.
I love it very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Guys, enjoy.
Bye, Sandy. See ya.
Beautiful.
Every detail on it is so amazing. Like the music, that is so cool.
It goes really well. I mean, it has really good stability.
Time remaining 4 minutes.
Whistle.
No, let me look at you.
Ooh, it's a magic steering wheel. Look at Captain's face too is like, what is that?
Isn't that cool?
Whistle. At the dock. No.
Then shortly after that, I went up to the Bay Area. I worked on installing a spiral staircase in my Aunt Eunice's house that we were working on restoring. I bought this kit from the iron company in Pennsylvania. So anyway, it was a challenge for me to install this staircase, but while I was there, I brought the boat with me so I could run it in Spreckles Lake. There was an event for model fishing boats in the lake, and they said that it was fine to go ahead and run my boat while they were having their event. They also mentioned that there was, in the near future, there was going to be another event for steamboats called a Steam Up in Spreckles Lake. And So when I went back there to work on the staircase again, I came back to participate in the steam up event. And enjoyed sharing my hobby with other people. One of the modelers, a guy named Dave Galligher, had a beautiful collection of steamboats that I really enjoyed seeing and sharing. Anyway, you can see here is the finished staircase, which we were very happy with how it turned out. Another place that I ran the boat was Echo Lake in Los Angeles. Here you can see it was a big hit among children and families in the lake. I enjoyed running it there. Then also Averill Park, there was a mother with her small daughter that enjoyed all the interesting dollhouse features that I included in the boat.
Okay, I'm gonna bring it back. Okay. You need me to catch it for you? I'm just turning that.
And went back to Don Knabe Park again, and there again, more children interested in the boat. After that, I actually came across another steam engine that was made by a different company, another marine steam engine that had two double-acting cylinders. It was reversing and self-starting, which I bought because it was another bargain for I think about $150. And so I put that together, but shortly after that I discovered going in for a physical that I had an elevated white blood cell count, which my new primary care physician was concerned about and had me tested, and I discovered that I had a rare aggressive form of leukemia that had a very poor prognosis, that if nothing was done I would live 6 months. If I had chemotherapy I could live a little bit longer, but the only chance of surviving would be a stem cell transplant. So I didn't think I was going to be living much longer. So I bought Heather a nice new car to thank her for everything that she had done for me, and then invited my nephew, Mike Cobb, and his sons down to take them to Disneyland. Then, while he was down there, I gave him the steam engine and told him that if he built a boat, I would build a boiler for it. And I didn't think I really had enough time to build the boat myself, so then what I had thought that actually one could, because the boilers themselves are kind of expensive, that I decided that I could make a boiler myself out of copper cups. There were these copper cups in a local thrift store that for Moscow Mule drinks, and I bought 2 of them, and I started using this idea that I had that I could make a boiler out of it. to construct the boiler out of fittings that I got from a supply company, and also I think a copper pipe just from the hardware store. And I silver soldered these things together and ended up making the boiler. Then this supply company, the one that supplied the steam engine, also supplied gauges and valves and so forth, which I added to the boiler that I made. And then I made a wood cladding around it. And here you can see the finished boiler that I put together. I put it together actually pretty quickly, within a couple of weeks. Mike went on to decide what model he was going to build. My model, I just bought a kit, the Borkum, that I could build, and I built it like in 2 weeks. But Mike actually found plans for a full-sized steamboat. It was another Fantail launch. I've forgotten the name of it. But he basically paid a few dollars for plans for the full-size model, which he was going to used to create a kit from scratch. In the meantime, before I became symptomatic with my disease, decided that we should go on a nice vacation. And so Heather and I ended up going to the Galapagos Islands and spending a couple of weeks there, which was a fantastic vacation and put us in a good mindset for dealing with the disease. The other thing was that Joan, my sister, insisted that she be tested to be a donor for a stem cell transplant. And it turned out, even though there was only a 25% chance, that she was a match. And so we went ahead to proceed with the stem cell transplant, which was going to be a long process, but it was a chance of me continuing to live a little bit longer. Here are some drawings showing what Mike did in terms of taking the plans, the printed plans to make a kit for the steamboat that he was going to build. He did an amazing job. He's, of course, an architect that has drafting skills and software for making three-dimensional models of things. So he took advantage of his professional skills to work on creating the kit. I ended up sending him information about the boiler that I'd built, and he had the steam engine, so he could figure out how he was going to install those things into the kit. Then I ended up giving him some suggestions as to how he might construct the model, and here's just a pencil sketch I made of how I suggested he might create the kit from the plans. He pretty much took my advice, but we interacted back and forth over the phone and by email to work on deciding how exactly to make the kit. So anyway, he proceeded and we moved the engine around to make it fit in the right place. One of the things I had suggested was that to avoid trying to make a kit to accommodate the compound curves for both the bow and the stern, that we do the bow and the stern with solid wood blocks. And he had a ShopBot, which was basically a computer-controlled milling machine that he could program to create these blocks with compound curves on them to avoid having to try to do planking or whatever that would accommodate these very complex shapes in the bow and the stern. I, from another company, found an appropriate propeller, a nice brass propeller that was suitable for the size of the model and engine. So these are some images here of Mike's progress in creating a kit and cutting out parts with his ShopBot, and then the building up of the hull and installing the decks and the formers, and the bow and the stern blocks were attached to that.
Okay.
And then here's another video
I'm running pressure
showing
up to
basically a demonstration
about 25 pounds.
of the safety valve.
I wanted to show how the
Before I
safety
send it
valve
off
works. If you can
to Mike.
increase the pressure by turning it clockwise, or decrease the pressure by turning it counterclockwise. There, you can see right now that that's right about 25 pounds. So if I close it down, it should raise the pressure a little bit higher. And the pressure's rising slowly, just a little over 25 pounds now. The engine's not running. I'm just trying to build up the pressure. But again, it's exceedingly quiet. You need to start it up. You barely hear it. And right now it looks like we're holding right around 25 pounds. Let's reverse. Oh, it looks like the boiler's going dry. I'm going to turn off the gas because we're running out of water in the boiler. And the pressure's going to drop down. Okay, that's it.
Then Joan came down, and she needed to be processed for creating stem cells and extracting them. And then I ended up going to the hospital after 12 weeks of chemotherapy for a month. And as you can see here, I lost my hair, which was a shock to me when I looked in the mirror. Anyway, we continued with deciding how to actuate the rudder and the engine, and Mike decided how he was going to include the servos to run the rudder. And then for the compound surface of the hull, the final thing he needed to do was to plank the hull, and this shows the planking that he did. He did a beautiful job of planking it. And then after that, he needed to waterproof it, so he needed to fiberglass it. And here shows the glass cloth that he chose. All these things he's doing for the first time, and I was very impressed because over the years I've had lots of experience in building. It took me a number of tries basically to get some of these things down, but Mike was very careful and managed to do all these things on the first try and do them really well. We needed a radio, so I picked out a radio, which I sent to him, and he started to install. It took a couple of weeks for me to build my Borkum. I think it was more like 2 years before Mike's project was complete. But he had a lot of patience. Of course, he was also supporting a family and a full-time job and raising children, so he had lots of other things that he had to do at the same time, as opposed to my situation when I'm retired. Finally, we got together to run our boats together in the Russian River, which was a place I had always dreamt of running a steamboat. It seemed to be the appropriate environment for a steamboat, with a nice lazy river.
Oh, that made my day.
So Mike's boat was a big hit. Everybody enjoyed seeing his boat.
Well done, Bill.
And then I took my boat up there too, and it seemed like people enjoyed it as well. was a fun project.
Look at all those bugs. Do a treat, Bill. Are they scared of it, Bill? Maybe take it away from them. Oh, that's okay. Maybe not. Maybe they're scared of it, Bill. Well, watch out for this boy.
Although it was a little bit of excitement
throw things at the
because
boat.
Stop it!
some of the small children were maybe not so
Bill,
well
don't
behaved
get-
and had to worry that they were going to do something that might end up hurting the boat. But that didn't happen, and so it turned out to work out really well.
You're causing chaos, Bill.
Finally, my friends Mike Savannah and Sue Greenwald came up. Sue had experience with making videos. Unfortunately, I don't think I had an opportunity to include any of her pictures or videos in this story, but hopefully I'll be able to show those sometime soon. Finally, I came across still another steam engine. So I guess this story is continuing. I haven't really decided what boat it might go in, but it looks like maybe there's another boat coming down the line. Oh, and by the way, my oncologist told me that she thinks I'm cured from leukemia. So while I didn't expect to survive, it seems as though I have. I mentioned Mike Slack, who's the head of the fleet warmers. That's the music that has been playing in the background. So anyway, stay tuned, and maybe in the future there'll be another video showing another steamboat. Thanks for watching.